Welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to share with you my Crusadia deck profile. Now Crusadia is a very cool deck. I'm going to share with you the pure version, which is just the OTK stuff. I'm not going to do the Guard Dragon thing, so we're going to just have a straight on head forward OTK with avramax. That's kind of the name of the game plan. And because of that, there's not going to be any combos, because there's really no combos beside the fact that you're trying to summon avramax and break your opponent's board or summon an avramax during going first and just sit on it and do absolutely nothing and watch your opponent having a very hard time removing it. But before we jump right into the video itself, I'm going to remind you that if you want to see more videos like this, please consider hitting the subscribe button. It's helped us a ton. And let me know in the comments down below what you think, and give a like if you enjoyed the video. But without further ado, let's jump right into the video itself. Alright, so starting the list off, we're going to jump right into the monsters, and we're going to start with the Crusadia ones. And all of the Crusadia monsters, I run 3 copies of each. That's mean 3 Maximus, 3 Draco, 3 Arborea, 3 Reclusia, and also the 3 copies of Leonis. Now, originally I actually ran one less copy of Leonis when I play tested with the deck, because I felt like maybe I could get away by running only 14 Crusadias. But the more and more I play with the deck, the more and more I realize why I need 3 copies of each is because of the fact that even if there is a particular monster, which we'll get to him in a second after I will explain these, that basically kind of copy the name of a Crusadia and become a Crusadia name by itself, sometimes the effect can be negated and making it into, just the effect monster it is, which I think you already know what I'm talking about. But the point is like, you do need to see 2 Crusadia names to start your plays. One to normal summon and one to special summon to at least get to your OTK combo. So just seeing all of these at 3 is just increasing the chance of you being able to draw 2 of them in your opening hand and doing your plays. Now Leonis, like I said, is the worst one by far, but it's not the worst thing in the world to still draw in your hand. As for their own individual effects, Maximus and Leonis kind of share the same thing, that they're able to grant a Crusadia monster until the end of the turn an effect. In the case of Maximus, it's turning it into an odd-eyes pendulum dragon, or by that I mean it does double piercing damage, or should I say not double piercing damage, double damage, and in case of Leonis, it does piercing damage. So it's basically together could become also a Chaos Max, because it's become double piercing damage. But the point is, this is double damage, this is piercing damage. In the case of Arborea, she is your protection. She can banish yourself from field or graveyard to protect your Crusadia monsters from being destroyed by battle by card effects. In the case of Draco and Reclusia, they can activate their effects on normal or special summon to a zone a link monster points to. Draco will recover you a Crusadia card from your graveyard to your hand except itself, and Reclusia will allow you to target a Crusadia card you control and a card your opponent control and destroy both of them, which is also very, very good sometimes to remove floodgates, or just in general help you break your opponent's board going second regardless, because it's not really a monster with a high attack. It's just a monster that is very, very nice to sometimes have just to be a board breaker. But that does it all for the Crusadias. All of them, like I said, is important to run, in my opinion, in 3. You could run, like I said, Leonis or maybe Reclusia 2 each, but I felt like the fact that I need to draw with 2 of them in my opening hand, like I mentioned, is very important. Then for the rest of the monster that are special summoning for you, we have 1 copy of Crown, 3 copies per Exceed, and 3 copies of the card that I mentioned before, which is Format Skipper. Format Skipper, I just tried to not mention its name, but it's still very important to mention. Format Skipper is the honorary Crusadia, because it can take a name of any link monster in your extra deck. So if you take any name of Crusadia that is not, Magius, so it can be all of these, and then you just link it off for a Magius, and that will give you also the ability to link it off, activate its effect, and get to your hand a Pearl Exceed, which is a great extender. Now, the other really, really great thing about this card is that it's also a very good card to eat hand traps, and I have instances that this card by itself was able to eat 2 hand traps, and because of that I was able to still perform my play. Because it does need to take a name, which means it will eat a hand trap like Infinite Permanence or Effect Veiler, and then with its search effect it can eat the Ash Blossom. So you can technically still turn this into an Mirage, bait a second hand trap, then still get a Link Arrow for your plays, and then be able to OTK your opponent, which is very, very cool. So 30 copies of this card. I don't really know why I didn't run it last list. It's still still a very, very good card and just does a lot of job for the deck. Format Skipper is just, in my opinion, just here to stay. In the case of Parallel Exceed, like I said, it's just a free special summon for Link Arrows. It's a great card. It's either rank 4 or additional Link Fodders, which is really good. And in the case of World Legacy Crown, well, this is just a great, well, special summoner as well. It's still a body, but on top of that, it can also be some kind of interruption sometimes. So if you are able to get into it or like draw into it, it just becomes some small interruption for the deck, which give you some kind of protection if you are forced going first, or if you need to go for a little bit of a grind game because you weren't able to OTK your opponent. But that does it for these monsters. For the rest of the monsters, we have 5 left, which I think you already know what they are. The kaijus, which is 1 copy of Jizukiru, 1 copy of Dogoran, 1 copy of Geraldla, or whatever his name is, 1 copy of Kamangus, and 1 copy of Jizukiru, or, sorry, Gamma Seal. Jizukiru is this one. Anyway, 5 kaijus. 5 kaijus, or 4 kaijus, or even 3 kaijus if you want to. You want to run a number of kaijus because these kind of serve as big hand traps in a way, but not exactly. They don't really, hand trap or stop your opponent, but they're great for this deck because they're giving your opponent a big monster, getting rid of an interruption that could be really annoying, like a Dragoon, and just putting it in the arrow that you need to point for your Equimax, and the Equimax will be able to OTK your opponent quite easily. Now, there is a reason why I'm running 5 kaijus, is because the reason that I'm going to say right now. I don't run Interrupted Kaiju Slumber for a very good reason, and that is because Interrupted Kaiju Slumber is, how should I say this, not really that good anymore. Not because the card is terrible, but because of the fact that Ash Blossom can stop it, and your opponent most of the time is going to stop the card regardless. So I'd rather run another Kaiju name, if not 2, if you are one of those that run 3 Kaijus, and still have the ability to do stuff. Now, I would maybe try to even run 6 of these if I had the room for it, but I think 5 for now just works quite fine. And it could be even the same kaijus, it can even be 3 copies of this and then 2 copies of this. It's just really nice to have variety, just in case. So just different kind of kaijus, and then like maybe you can even use this kaiju to give to your opponent, and if you're not able to OTK, get over them with like this kaiju that you summon for yourself, and then even kaiju them again if you need to with a 3rd one to get rid of another interruption to even start your plays, and then like sometimes that's the thing that you do. So it's kind of a really, really cool way to use kaijus as their own hand traps, which is very cool. But that does it for the monsters. 27 monsters, including the kaijus. Now we'll move on into the spells and traps. And for the spells, first I run 1 copy of Revival, double copies of Power, and 1 copy of Testament. These are the Crusadia spells. Testament is actually a lot better than I give it credit for. Last list, people just suggested me regardless because of the draw 3 to draw 4 effect. But I actually even considered to maybe bumping this up to 2 because it kind of have an Ultrageist Protocol effect for a turn regardless, which is sometimes you do need this kind of an effect to protect your monster, so having the ability that your opponent cannot activate card or effects and respond to your Crusadia effects activations is very, very good. So I'm sometimes actually considering to maybe run a 2nd copy of this, but I'm not 100% sure. Then we have Crusadia Power, which is your searchable kind of Cold by the Grave, but not exactly. I was originally running the 3rd, but I actually came to a conclusion that there's a better card to run, which is kind of serve as another name for anyway, which this card is searchable regardless. So I rather run Cold by the Grave in another card, which is Instant Fusion, so that's why I decided to only run this at 2. But it's a great card, can stop Nibiru. Basically, it's like your only way, I guess, to stop Nibiru regardless, because your opponent will try to Nibiru you. Then you can target your Regulix or your Equimax, and then they're unaffected and your opponent cannot tribute them because that's how the effect works, which is really, really cool. And then we have Revival, which is if you don't have power or you don't really need power, you search this or this, depending on the situation, and this just gives your monster an additional 500 attack and the ability to attack everything, which give it the ability, like, any other monster cannot attack, but you have a Link monster that gains 500 attack and can attack everything, and that is most of the time enough for your Equimax to perform its OTK, which is very, very good. And then for the rest of the spells, we have 6 more. We have 1 Reinforce of the Army for the 4th copy of Aboria, Monster Reborn and Legacy Succession, or World Legacy Succession for additional extenders. This becomes really good as well with Equimax or other cards because you are able to create like a Link arrow, and this just becomes live really, really quickly. So that's pretty cool. Then we have one Instant Fusion, as I mentioned before, for Millennium Eyes Restrict, to be a card that eat hand traps. Coll by the Grave, same idea. And then Harvey Feather Duster for annoying back row. You don't really care about back rows that much. Like, the only back rows that, like, annoys you are things like that can destroy your summoning or prevent you from summoning multiple times from the extra deck, which a lot of people don't really run. And even, like, there can be only one kind of doesn't really bother you because you have so many different types of monsters in the main deck, in the extra deck, so it kind of doesn't really bother you that much. But it's really important to have something like this to just remove, like, a really annoying back row. So, like, things like Solemn Strike and stuff like that, and Torrential Tribute could annoy you. Things like Imperial Order and stuff like that you don't really care about. Maybe even Skill Drain, but most of the time, like, the most annoying back row card is Imperial Order. So that's kind of, like, not really going to work regardless. But, like I said, you're not really a deck that uses a whole lot of spells, and that's also the other reason why I don't run Slumber. Because Slumber is another spell that, like, can be stopped very easily. And I was considering maybe even running a Cosmic Cyclone instead of this sometimes, or Twin Twisters. But I felt like Harvey Feather Duster still does its job, what it needs to do. I just need to remove all of the back row if they're, like, you know, not really just have something to deal with this. And then for the last card, free Infinite Permanence. Can be any hand traps that you wish. I decided to go with these because these cannot be stopped by Cold by the Graves and such. In the future, this is going to be still a good card, but, you know, you're, like, a lot of people will have, what are called, Crossout Designator, but it's still a very, very good card. It's still kind of like an Effect Veiler, and it's still a very nice card as well. And if you are forced to go first, and then, like, you need to set these can still be used as traps that can end, or should I say, not end, but able to deal with some spell effects, or, like, turn some lanes of spells for your opponent off, which is very, very good. But that does it for the main deck. Now we'll move on into the extra deck. And for the extra deck, well, because I got the Codebreaker engine from last time, I have a lot more room, so I run 2 copies of Magius, 2 copies of Regulix, 2 copies of Equamax for our good Crusadias that I think need to be run at 3, and then for the one-offs, I have 1 copy of Spatha and 1 copy of Equamax, or avramax. These are also very, very important in my opinion, and you want to run 1 copy each regardless. Now, all of these are, in my opinion, very good, very good. Some people actually even like to run a second copy of avramax instead of a second copy of Regulix. I've seen these kind of like builds go around, but I felt like I want to run 2 of the good ones that give you consistency and help you build back the ladder, because there are some times that you are actually using Equamax as an interruption, and you're able to stop your opponent, but they're able to break your board regardless, so you are able to climb once again back up into an Equamax and OTK your opponent. In the case of Magius, when you summon for its Link Arrow, he gives you the ability to search a Crusadia monster. Regulix is a Spells and Traps. And in the case of Equamax, he's able to tribute a Crusadia or World Legacy card to negate an effect on the field, or target a card on the field and negate its effect. And all of these, including also the Spatha, have the effect that they gain attack equal to the cards that they point to. So that's why things like the so-called kaijus are really good, because in the case of Equamax, you give 1 for your opponent, which you point to upwards to the zone that the kaiju is in, and then you give 1 to yourself, which is also really big, and then it's able to attack multiple times if you also have the field spell, and it just deals tons of damage, which is really, really cool. Spatha is also very important for some combos. She moves things around, which is also sometimes good. If you summon something for a Link Arrow and she's able to move, like, for example, an opponent monster to the Link zone that you want to, so that's very, very nice. And then avramax is just a great card, very hard for a lot of decks to deal with. Sometimes you just summon an avramax turn 1 and pass, and a lot of decks will have a very hard time getting rid of this, because there's not really a lot of destruction effects by themselves, and even if there are, you have Arborea, so Arborea can still protect this from 1 destruction effect. Your opponent cannot target this, and even if they attack this with an access code, well, you are able to get over that access code because you gain the attack equal to the attack of the monster, and access code cannot really activate effect in the battle phase because it's not a quick effect to destroy a card, so yeah, it doesn't really matter. And even if your opponent activates something like a Troop Tactic Talents, after that, they're only getting this until the end of the turn. Also, this card, when it dies, still spins something, so that's really, really cool. But that does it for the Crusadia stuff. And now we'll move on to the rest of the extra deck. The rest of the extra deck is Olmirage, Link Spider, IP Masquerena and Unicorn in case of the Link monsters. This one is, like I said, is for the format skipper. If its effects get negated, you go to this one. It still gives you an arrow, and you're still able to maybe search the Pearl Exceeds, unless of course your opponent stops you with an Ash Blossom. Link Spider is against the Nibiru token. If you're not able to stop it, you're still able to get the Nibiru token, turn it into an arrow, and still keep going. IP Masquerena is sometimes good, sometimes bad, but most of the time you're just using it as like a way to bring out a Unicorn during the opponent's turn. Sometimes use it to bring an avramax during the opponent's turn if you're not sure that you're able to protect your avramax from destruction. Although, like I said, free tactic talents could become a problem because this count as an monster effect activated during the opponent's turn. So you need to play this very, very smartly. But for the most part, this is still like a removal with Unicorn, which is pretty cool. And then for your non-link monsters, which are the 3 last monsters of your extra deck, Millennium Iris Restrict doesn't really surprise you. We run Instant Fusion, so that makes sense. Dugaris and Abyss Dweller are my 2 rank 4 of choices. I actually considered to maybe cut one of these and run another link monster, but I came to the conclusion that I want 2 of these, because Abyss Dweller is good if you're going first, you're able to build this, and it's able to give you the ability to deal with a lot of graveyard-centered decks, which there are a lot in the formats all the time, and especially now. And then we have Dugaris, which is just a good card to help you OTK, or Monster Reborn if you need to, or draw 2 and discard 1. You do skip a particular phase when you do that, which in the case of draw 2 is skip your draw phase. If you do the Monster Reborn, you skip your main phase 1, and if you do the double attack for your monster, you skip the next battle phase. Now, it's actually really cool because you don't really care about that most of the time. Like, most of the time it just like will be Dugaris plus an Equimax. You target the Equimax will get the double damage if you're not able to get the Maximus. Then this will just make it able to just kill everything really easily, which is really cool. Besides the fact that it also boosts the Equimax by 1200 attack regardless. So this is a very good card. Sometimes I do think it's a little bit hard to summon, but because of the fact that we run Formad and Pearl Exceed, I feel like it's just like able to see Pearl Exceed so consistently enough so you are able to make this, which is very cool. But that does it for the extra deck and does it for the deck profile. Alright, so for the next deck choices, we have the 3 returning choices from last week that weren't, didn't win this week. And these are Abyss Actors, Toad, or, Paleozoic Frog, and Spirals. These are the 3 options that I present for you. And then the 4th option is a Psychic deck that got a little bit of a boost from the banlist with Emergency Teleport coming up to 2. And I'm not talking about Virtual World. The decks that I actually want to do is Mutants again, because Mutants is a really cool deck. Hopefully they will get more support in the future now that they're coming out to the OCG. And honestly, I just think I want to kind of handle them again, because I think I can maybe able to handle them better. But before we end up actually the video, I want to talk about the ban list for a second, because I don't really think there's really a whole lot to talk about the ban list, but I think it's really important. Basically, this ban list was something that I was expecting. Nothing really crazy, and things that are supposed to help them sell more product in the future, because Tri-Brigades are still a really good engine with Lyrilusk, which come out in almost less than a month after like 4 weeks exactly in the Synchrostorm set, so that's why they didn't hit them. Then they also give a little bit of love taps for the other meta decks, because they probably don't want to get rid of them yet. And then we also have the fact that, basically, I think the big problem why the ban list wasn't, really that effective and didn't really do a whole lot of things with it is because products this year weren't really selling that well. We had a lot of, low-power core sets, with Blazing Vortex, even Lightning Overdrive, which is better, but it still wasn't really amazing. And until we'll get, something that, Konami just, feel that, filling up their banks or whatever, I feel like that's the reason why they did this, because a lot of the, this year's sets were a little bit weaker than what I expected them to be, with Ancient Guardians and all that stuff, and Blazing Vortex. There were some good sets, obviously, but there were a lot of sets that were really hyped and then kind of a little bit disappointing. So I think that's the reason why Konami is kind of trying to bank on the Megatons, because the Megatons has a lot of very strong cards that they will be able to sell very easily. So that's why they're hitting everything around it, so they will be able to still deal with the meta, but still sell these Megatons very well. But that's pretty much does it for the video. So hope you enjoyed. Hope this ban list small rant was able to explain to you things about the ban list as well. And I will see you next time in the next video. Bye bye.